Twitter at JMike1400.
That's right. We're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. And the truth is, we had a lot of wind here in our area last night. There was some damage. The mayor tells me the mayor, Matt Bemrick's going to call in a little bit later today and give us a little bit of rundown of what happened. And I have a couple of calls into Dylan Hagan, who is the emergency person for the county. But he hasn't gotten back to me yet, which tells me he's kind of busy. But I look forward to talking with Mayor Bemrick about the condition of the county and the city, and Dylan Hagan, of course. The storm wasn't as bad as it could have been across the state, I guess. The National Weather Service was really giving us a lot of very serious warnings starting yesterday at noon and through the afternoon and early evening. Of course, the Des Moines television stations preempted programming, and we're talking about the storms all evening, which they should, of course. I was ready to come back out to the radio station if need be and broadcast on all 7 of our radio stations. Turned out to be not necessary. I've checked with people across the state that I know and have been friends with for a long time, and they tell me there's, maybe a tree down or some branches down or something, but nothing serious. I'm sure there are some farm outbuildings that have been, if not badly damaged, destroyed completely, and none of those are a good thing. I'm going to have David Osberg of Common Good Iowa on here pretty soon. And David, as you know, is a big climate change guy. He insists that some of these storms and abnormal weather we're having are the result of climate change. Now, David's a well-educated and very experienced in the field. Actually, his field is ag economics, but he ties climate change into the agricultural situation. He does it very well, of course. But he's a strong proponent of wind energy and things like that. So this is the second time in about 3 years. We had that terrible derecho, of course. My son lives in the Marion, Iowa, in the Marion, Cedar Rapids area. Marion, to be exact, and I've never seen anything like the derecho. I went down to see him shortly after the derecho hit, just a few years ago, and I've never seen anything like it. And I've never seen in my life, and I've lived in Iowa almost my entire life, I've never seen this sort of weather in December, where we could have a high of 70 degrees and then a severe windstorm at night. If you have, give me a call, 955-1400, 955-1400, and tell me what year that was, because you must be a little older than I am, because I'll be 70 in February. I have never heard of or seen weather like that in my life. I've seen some pretty good winters. As a matter of fact, I'm reminded of the winter of 1978. Remember the winter of 1978? It was miserable. Cold started early. The snow was unbelievable. Up to telephone lines in the country. I remember that year, and I remember 1991 here in Fort Dodge, the October ice storm. Oh, what a disaster that was. So we've seen some odd weather events, but they've been pretty far apart. They're very unusual. Not so close as they are here. I don't know. Is it climate change, or is it just unusual? Unusual, like the Halloween ice storm or the winter of 1978. The old fellows in 1978 told me about the winter of 36. So I did a little investigation, and that one was pretty bad. There were kids that came into town for school. We were even more rural then than we are now. And they didn't get home for a week. Or they didn't get out of the house for a week if they were still out on the farm. It was impossible. Snow was way high. Of course, they had to do most of the work with horses and by hand in those days. So it took quite a while to get out of the storm. I think there was another nasty storm in 1975. 70s seemed to have a couple of pretty good storms, as I recall. 1975 was a bad one. I was living up in Algona, just east of Algona, about halfway between Algona and in Whittemore on Highway 18, west of Algona. A lot of cattle froze out there in the field, and some had even wandered into the ditches and onto the road. It was a terrible thing to see, and I believe that also happened in the Palmer-Pomeroy area. There was some real ugliness out there. I think farmers are a lot more careful with their cattle herds now, and certainly their pork herds, than they were. You know, people in California want us to have free range animals. I would remind them that they don't know much about free range animals. They actually passed a law in California that we can't export meat if we don't have free range. If the carts that the sows are in aren't of a certain size, it's an animal rights issue. The animal rights people got it through the California legislature. I think you can get practically anything through the California legislature that's offensive to tradition, offensive to other states, offensive to the idea of Christian character. I think in California, especially in some elements of the Democratic Party here, they delight in sticking their finger in traditional thinking and certainly Christian character and culture. They enjoy that sort of thing. So I despise them. And I'm trying not to. I'm trying to be a better person. I'm trying to accept the fact that some people just believe in disgusting things. And they are mightily incomprehensibly wrong. I'm trying to accept all that. But it is difficult. It's tremendously difficult. If you know of any damage, please give me a call here at 955-1400, 955-1400. Okay? Give me a call there and tell me about that. But I think we have a lot to be grateful for around this Christmas season, that storm last night didn't hurt a lot of people, because it could have. It had the capability of doing that. And I, of course, am very capable, or not capable, but grateful that my son survived COVID, because it was nip and tuck there for a while. Yeah, it really was. So 955-1400. 955-1400 if you have a question or comment. Of course, we'll have Nevin Mulholland and Randy Kuhlman in here tomorrow to talk sports. The big news as far as sports today is that Urban Meyer got fired. And, Meyer's 10 years younger than I am, at least. I think he's 57. I'm 69. Excuse me. And Meyer got fired for kicking a player in the leg. The player he kicked apparently was his kicker, who'd missed a field goal. I don't think the player was badly injured, but that's old school coaching, frankly. When I was a kid first playing football, we couldn't have a drink of water during practice. It got pretty hot in August. And we had to leave our helmets on all the time. The idea that we'd be toughened up for a game, and that we could endure physical punishment and physical discomfort, and still do our best, still put on a good performance and win the game. I don't have any problems with that now. There's been a change in our culture, and I know that the football coaches sometimes have difficulty getting young men to play football because their parents are discouraging them because it's such a rough and tough game. Yes, it's a rough and tough game. It can build good men, solid men, tough men, and yes, we still need them. Lord knows we have a lot of sensitive men out there who like to quote poetry and all of these things. I just Meyer, of course, was on video doing something else an old school coach would do. He went to a place where there was dancing, and a very attractive young woman came up and gave him a little like lap dance. And Urban Meyer's right hand disappeared repeatedly into an area where it shouldn't disappear. But again, the young woman didn't seem to be offended at all. I'm not either. But apparently somebody was, and he got fired. Good afternoon. This is KBFD. You're on the air.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about the grocery stores and restaurants in California suing the state of California to let Iowa hogs in?
Yes, I have done. I have heard that, as a matter of fact, and that was in the back of my mind when I brought that up on air. Is that the restaurateurs and grocery stores are certainly unhappy with the animal rights people. So, to my mind, growing up in Iowa, where we thought of animals as food, this is just insane. I mean, how do you do this? How do you put prohibitions on the production of food this way? I don't get it. But I have. Do you have more information on that? I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't sure I heard it, but I thought I did, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the Restaurant Association and some of the groceries are suing California. I don't think they'll get very far in California. The California Supreme Court will uphold any liberal law or any flaky public policy that can be thought of, certainly. I think smoking dope during Supreme Court sessions in California is mandatory, isn't it? I think I heard that.
I saw someplace it was on a T-shirt or a sweatshirt. It said, "God is good, beer is great, liberals are stupid."
Not all liberals are stupid, but they certainly, yeah, I'll tell you what's happening down in Des Moines schools with this genderqueer book. You ought to go to iowastandard.com. That's a conservative newspaper here in the state of Iowa, and see some of the pictures in those books and the descriptions that they have in junior high libraries and even for kids younger. I mean, there are drawings of very specific homosexual acts. And Senator or Representative Jennifer Confrist, I think she's of Windsor Heights, said the parents who are protesting these books are a fringe element in the state of Iowa. You see, you and I, we're fringe elements. We're not as bright as people who would put something like that in the public library for children to see without supervision or instruction of some kind. So I'm just here in my stupidity, being a fringe element. I should rename the show as the Fringe Element.
Why don't they go after the schools for distributing kiddie porn?
That's a good question. I think that that should be done. Yesterday, I talked with Jake Hall of the Iowa Standard newspaper about a story he's covering in the Linn-Mar School District. Linn-Mar's in Marion, where my grandchildren live. They had a Transgender Awareness Week at the school that featured teachers apparently being paid by taxpayers, guarding some pro-transgender signs in the school. And there was some other instruction involving the wonderfulness of transgender lifestyle in the school. I've called the principal of that school this morning. He was annoyed to hear from me, to say the very least. And I put in a request for an interview, which I don't expect to get. If this is so educational that Linn-Mar School had to declare an entire week as Transgender Awareness Week, you would think they would be happy to explain it on radio stations and newspapers around the state. And as a matter of fact, they're avoiding it. They're hiding, and they're not explaining themselves at all because they're teachers. And you have to understand this. If you're a teacher in the state of Iowa, according to some teachers, you can teach our children any damn thing that you want to. And if you say anything, you're a fringe element at best, and a freak, and a pervert, or a racist, or a bigot, or all kinds of things. And that's the game. You see what they're doing? Lying. They're teaching something that they believe in out of their own weakness and then lying about who you are. And for too often, we've sat there and took it. Well, I'm not going to take it anymore. Hey, thanks for your call.
You bet.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD, banging Monday through Friday from 2 to 5.
It's 2:30.
It's Christmas, comedy, and country music as Alpha Media presents A Not So Silent Night with Joe Denham. Be in the Cardiff Center at Fort Frenzy Saturday night, December 18th.
KVFD.
That's right. I'm the mayor of Manville, Michael Devine, and we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. With me now is David Osterberg. Are you the mayor of Manville in your town there, Mount Vernon, David, or what's the scoop?
Mayor of nothing.
Mayor of nothing? Oh, come on.
That's not. I remember I've done that politics.
That's
I
right.
decided to run against Chuck Grassley, and that is a career ender, pretty much, for a Democrat.
But you are Colonel Climate Change, right?
Yeah, well, climate change, that's fine. No, there's still plenty of work to do. It's just not elective office.
Yes, it is. Were you in the Senate or House? I keep forgetting.
I was in the House.
You were in the House. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, Chuck Grassley, you didn't quite have the bank book, by the way. People still say when they hear you on the air, is that the guy who was running for Senate that used to paddle around in a canoe in the rivers and the streams in Iowa to say how polluted they are? And said, yeah, that's my boy.
That's me.
That's the guy. Chuck Grassley had, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing the national anthem on his behalf, but you could afford a canoe. That's not bad. I think you were really taking on a giant in the state of Iowa there, David.
Well, I think everybody was taking him on. I mean, I don't think, well, I know that no Democrats got more than 35% of the vote running against Chuck ever since after his first election.
Really? Wow. Yeah. I can't remember. So Roxanne Conlon, didn't she run the last time or not?
Patty Judge.
Patty Judge, was that who ran against him?
Yeah, Patty. She spent the most and didn't get any better than the rest of us who didn't spend much at all.
Well, I guess you can't beat Joni Ernst here either.
No, you can't do it.
I thought she was going to get beat. I thought Teresa Greenfield was going to beat her.
Well, I was hoping.
Joni's kind of got Dick Clark syndrome. He went away to Washington. We never saw him again. Kind of like Tom Vilsack, for that matter. But Joni is kind of that way too. She never wants to come home. Never wants to talk on local radio stations. That's not a good thing in a small rural state like Iowa.
Exactly. The person who did that was Dave Loebsack. He was home, I think, every weekend, and he was off in, counties all over the place.
Chuck Grassley goes to every county in every state.
That's right. Nope. You gotta say that's a good thing. You can't say that's not a good thing.
I think Joni Ernst may have visited Polk County, but I don't know. Just dropped by with her donation basket. Anyway, David Osterberg is with Common Good Iowa. Common Good Iowa, formerly the Iowa Policy Project. Common Good Iowa has a website, and they're for all things good in Iowa. So they're good.
They're good. We are good.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, that's I believe you. I know that to be true. Let's see what I lost.
We were going to talk about solar and nuclear and the Duane Arnold site.
Absolutely. Before we get there, though, what about this wind last night? I've never seen anything like this. I was talking about that in the last segment. I've lived in Iowa most of my life. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, I've lived here most of my life, and I haven't either. And, I don't know. The thing about climate change is you can't just say, hey, the wind blew, climate change. But you can say if things seem to be happening more and more that never happened before or rarely happened before, there is something going on. And there's certainly something going on in the climate. There's just, and it's really, really simple. There's just more heat in the atmosphere, and that heat holds more water vapor, and that has a lot to do with flooding and storms and everything else.
Yeah. This is, it was really unusual last night. I guess it didn't turn out to be much damage, so that's good. I haven't heard of anybody even being injured, which is also a very good thing.
That's also very good. Yeah, my lights were out for like 3 hours.
Mm. So my son, of course, has worked at the Duane Arnold power plant now for nuclear energy plant for, 12 years, something like that. It's being closed. And what is being planned for the Duane Arnold site now?
Well, a large solar array, quite big, biggest in Iowa. And it will be at least starting out about 200 megawatts of solar. The Duane Arnold nuclear plant was 600 megawatts of nuclear. But it doesn't mean that this is going to be a third of Dwayne Arnold, because Dwayne Arnold ran all the time. And, you only run the solar when the sun's shining. I mean, well, actually, that's wrong, because what they're doing, besides that 200 megawatts of solar, they're putting in 75 megawatts of storage. So in the middle of the day when the sun's really shining, say in October when there's not a lot of demand, you just fill that battery up and then you let it go when the rates are the highest, which would be after the sun goes down, more like 6, 7, 8 o'clock. That's when the highest demand generally is.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise anybody. Who's behind this solar project?
Well, NextEra was the owner of Dwayne Arnold Nuclear Plant.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are going to be building it, although they're then going to pass it on to Alliant. And that's the reason this is a whole lot better than the other plants that are being proposed, because NextEra knew how to work with unions. I mean, they had 500 union workers there.
Tell me about it. My son was vice president of the union down there for a while.
Oh, was he? Good. No, so they are saying, we're going to build this and we're going to have local jobs and we're not scared of unions. We know how to work with folks. They do really good work. And we're going to build this thing with all kinds of benefits then coming to the local community.
That would be a good thing. I don't know how many people that Dwayne Arnold employed there. Quite a few, I know, but
about 500.
500. Okay, you did say that, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, and this is going to be at the end. Hold your hat now. Two people will run the whole solar thing. Well, that's why solar is so much more efficient, and that's why they were just eating the lunch of coal-fired power plants and nuclear power plants.
Well,
they're just really cheap.
Well, how can going from 500 well-paid workers to 2, how is that good for the local economy?
Well, the good part is who builds the thing, and it's going to be all these people doing the construction, and there'll be 200 of them. Those are going to be local jobs for local people.
Yeah, but that's very temporary, David.
It is 2 years, 2 years of building. So that's something, but and again, you and I recognize that I wanted to see that nuke go another 5 years.
Yeah.
Not forever, but another 5 years, just because you can't build a new one. The new ones, every time they start one, it is just a disaster. Always a disaster. They cost twice as much. They take twice as long as they're supposed to. The technology just hasn't got any better since 1955, really. I don't know what's wrong with that industry, but they just cannot have a project come in on time, under budget. They just don't do it.
Well, you and I are old enough to remember the nuclear freakout of the 1970s. A lot of people, the old Vietnam people, who didn't have anything to protest about for a while, I guess, decided it would be great to gather in city parks around the country and protest nuclear power.
Yeah, they did.
And certainly 3 Mile Island didn't anything to help the nuclear power industry. But as time went on, I thought that nuclear power, it seemed to be the thing for tomorrow. Yeah. The savior, the way we could get away from fossil fuels and that sort of thing. And just as an aside, when we talk about electric cars, isn't the energy generated for electric cars beginning with fossil fuel anyway?
Yeah, depending where you are, sure. In the state of Iowa, remember, wind is half of our electricity is produced with wind. So if you have an electric car here in Iowa, you're getting, mainly a renewable energy going into that battery.
Okay.
Especially if you have solar panels on your house like I do. So that would be a whole lot better. I mean, you're right. If you have an electric car in West Virginia, it's the same as a gas-powered car.
Okay.
No better.
Okay.
But out here, someplace like California, Texas, here in Iowa, of course. Here in Iowa, we're the leaders. Remember that. We have the highest percentage of our electricity coming from wind of any state.
I think actually Montana, not surprisingly, generates more wind power, and Texas as well.
Texas does. No, Texas, they really are behemoths. They produce, we have 11 gigawatts of power, 11,000 megawatts. I talked about, 200 megawatts, 600 megawatts for Dwayne Arnold.
Right.
We have 11,000 megawatts of wind, but Texas has 30.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they have so much. But Montana is not a big state. I don't know where that was. Maybe they're large in terms of percentage because nobody lives there. But it's not. It's not.
That's what I'm
state.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, the big ones are Kansas, Oklahoma, Iowa, not Nebraska, because Nebraska decided they didn't want to do that. But yeah, we're the big states that produce wind.
Wow.
And you saw it last night, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we must have packed away a lot of it on this.
Yeah, but the thing is, when it blows that hard, they just turn those puppies off and point them away from the wind and let the wind blow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about these carbon neutral sites. We're gearing up for another pipeline fight.
Yeah, we are.
And what side of the issue are you on here? I mean, they want to transfer by pipeline. I don't even know what they're going to be transporting.
It's this carbon dioxide that is produced by ethanol plants and fertilizer plants. And it's a good marketing deal for an ethanol plant. And in fact, there are laws in California and Oregon about they want their ethanol to be produced with renewable sources if possible. So if you use coal fire to make the ethanol, you're probably not going to be able to sell in California or Oregon. So if you can get rid of that CO2 somehow, though, that's going to make your ethanol more easy to be sold, probably for a higher price. Now, so getting rid of CO2 is a good idea. What I don't like is those 2,000-mile pipelines. The state geologist here in Iowa just last week said we should be able to put that same thing into the ground here in Iowa rather than sending it to North Dakota or Illinois. And that's would then not run those pipelines over some really good farmland, which I'm sure farmers don't like very much. And it certainly wouldn't be this eminent domain that just makes everybody mad.
Yeah, it makes me mad.
Yeah.
But how do we store it in the ground in Iowa?
Well, you do the same thing that you're going to be doing someplace else. You push it down, and it goes down a long ways, like thousands of feet deep. And it's contained in some kind of geologic structure where the CO2 will continue to be that liquid. They have to make it under incredible pressure to move it as a liquid to those pipelines. You push it down there, it stays in the ground for thousands of years, and that's what you want to be able to do. But the pipeline, the only thing about the pipeline, they seem to be sending it out exactly where there's a whole lot of oil and gas going on. And the main use for carbon dioxide right now is to push it into the ground and bring up more oil. Not exactly good for getting rid of CO2. If you push it down, it goes underground. Yes, it does. But then it pushes up oil and gas, which then is burned and produces more CO2. So by not sending it to those places, but trying to capture it, I like the capture idea, but you ought to be doing it here. And at least one study in Iowa by the state geologist says we have the same formations here that will hold that CO2 deep in the ground. Then that's what ought to happen. Stop sending it by pipeline.
Well, who was saying that we could do it here in Iowa or store it here in Iowa?
The state geologist that was this last week.
In this, you don't know his name or her name.
I can't remember his name. I know the guy, but I can't. I'm old. I can't remember anybody's name.
I heard that, pal. I really did. I just, I do something, I forget it. I walk into a room, have no idea why I walked in there. It's just, all the old guy stuff, all the old person
every
stuff.
joke.
Every single joke. Yeah. I haven't started wearing adult diapers yet. That's the good news.
Well, good. Me either. Let's hope we could keep that.
Yeah, let's hope we can keep that all going in a positive direction. And I don't know how that would look under my jeans. Oh wow, whoever thought I'd live to be this old? But I'm kind of glad I am now. I just don't want anything embarrassing to happen, like drooling in a public restaurant or something. Anyway, David Osterberg is our guest. He's at Common Good Iowa, and you can find Common Good Iowa on the line by going to commongood.org. That's right, isn't it, David?
That is. That's
right.
Exactly right. And one more thing about, if we still have the time.
Yes.
Usually when you go to any kind of change, you're going to put in a new confined animal feeding operation, new wind farm, solar farm, all kinds of neighbors are there saying, don't do it. And generally, those hearings have been pretty much dominated by those people. And there was a hearing in Cedar Rapids. The Iowa Utility Board came in, and this time, 60 construction workers walked in. And it wasn't outnumbered by huge numbers of neighbors versus everybody else. Those guys want the jobs.
Sure.
And they've got to deal with Next Era, and they are totally in support. And there's another solar plant that's coming into Lynn County also. They're not agreeing to use local people, and unions may come out against it. And they won't have any friends, because the neighbors, as general, and any change, you get a lot of neighbors who say no.
Speaking of older and very confused gentlemen, President Biden has... President Biden is our green president. I'm sorry, it's Common Good Iowa. We didn't say, see, there we go, old men stuff. I said commongood.org, and you agreed with me.
I didn't correct you.
That's right. Yeah, no,
you and
didn't.
Me, no, we can't. We need more people. We need somebody younger to be here saying, wait a minute.
Well, a friend of mine texted me, and he's older than both of us, I think. So anyway, it's Common Good Iowa. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, President Biden has been our green president. Has he been doing the right thing as far as you're concerned? Because you're kind of my green guy here on.
Yeah, no, a lot of it is. I mean, charging stations, as long as the governor doesn't send all the money back, could really help electric cars, which then helps the utility companies sell more of that power, sell more of that wind power. Now, I like that part, but a bunch of the other stuff for fighting climate change is in this BBB law, and that's the one we're not sure we're gonna get through. That's the one. It's in the Senate now, and Manchin, from a big coal state, doesn't necessarily like all that stuff.
No, I believe that.
So I don't know what's going to come out. I think some good stuff still will come out of that, and it will be fighting climate change. And the thing is that Iowa has shown that you fight climate change, and there are a lot of jobs. I mean, wind power has really taken off in this state, and solar power is now beginning to do the same thing. The utilities have kind of jumped onto it now, Mid-Am and Alliant. As I said, Alliant's going to have this 200 megawatts of that plant at the Duane Arnold Energy Center. Things are getting better. There are jobs there, and I think we ought to do that. Also, they are cheaper than what has gone on before. Again, that's why Duane Arnold went down. That's why they're closing all these coal plants. Not because they're green, but because they can't compete.
Well, they're old, and you even said the derecho a few years ago damaged the Duane Arnold.
It did. And I don't know how much, but they were going to close it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it was going to be closed in October, and the derecho hit in August. So they weren't about to put any money into that plant at that point.
Well, the good news is I think my son and some others may stay on at Duane Arnold or actually Next Gen, because there has to be somebody there to monitor the nuclear facilities for quite some time.
Like 10,000 years.
Yeah, I think that's quite a long time. Yeah, quite a long time. But anyway, is there anything else we need to know, David?
No, I think that's well, as usual. A nice conversation. When you start talking about President Biden, I was just hoping he doesn't have to get those adult diapers either.
I think I've spotted him on him. You know, he's kind of wearing some baggy suits every now and then. I'm a little concerned, but hey, I don't know. I don't know why we have all these elderly people running the country. Nancy Pelosi's in her 80s. Donald Trump wants to run for president again. He'll be 77. I mean, what's going on here? We don't have anybody under 60 that can run for president, for that thing. Anyway, thank you, David.
Hey, good to talk, Mike.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Roy Lindner of Fort Dodge has died. Roy J. Lindner, 94 years old of Fort Dodge, died on December 9th. Services will be held at Gunderson Funeral Home today from 5 to 7. The funeral will be held, a visitation will be held today from 5 to 7, and the funeral will be held tomorrow at 10. Interment will take place with full military honors at Corpus Christi Cemetery. That's Roy J. Lindner. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Of course, the entire show is sponsored by Blue Ribbon Distributing. Blue Ribbon Distributing is at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact them by calling 576-6481. I'm talking Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. I forgot to mention the Pelham business, but there's the Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. And they are, again, at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. Or you may contact them at info@fdwater.com. Brian Peterson, Steve Peterson, Sherry McCluckey, the whole group out there, and many, many more dedicated staff members there at Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. Okay, in the next half hour, we'll talk with soon-to-be former Councilman Jeffy Halter, the Swami. And we'll have kind of a goodbye a sad goodbye to Jeff Halter, who was one of the easier interviews I ever had and the most fun guy to interview on the air. It's 3 o'clock. The news is coming up.
This is Dave Grafelund.
3/4 at 12.77 1/4. March up 13 at 12.78 1/4. May up 11 cents at 12.84, and July up 10 1/2 at 12.90 1/4. Soybean meal up 10 cents at 3.7230. December live cattle up 27 cents at 135.27. February up 47 at 137.05. January feeder cattle down 85 cents at 162.57. March down 15 at 164.32. February lean hogs up 102 at 80.35. April up 67 at 84.87. That's look at how the markets closed. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Puerto Rico is the new go-to destination for investment opportunities, and Impeller is the new online tool that connects investors with innovative projects seeking capital on the island. Impeller takes the guesswork out of investing in Puerto Rico, surfacing the insights you need to make informed decisions and empower your investment portfolio. Visit investpr.org/impeller and set up your account today to see what the island has to offer. Impeller, your hub for investment opportunities in Puerto Rico. Powered by Invest Puerto Rico.
Hello, Discover here to explain our cash back match. Here's how it works. We give you cash back for using your Discover card on the things you were going to buy anyway. Then we match that cash back in your first year. And that's why we call it Cashback Match. Now to recap and say cashback one more time. We match all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year automatically. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Elder abuse should be a crime in Iowa. Local Iowa law enforcement and financial institutions regularly see financial exploitation and other elder abuse, but have few tools to stop it. AARP Iowa joins many Iowa groups in support of state legislation that would make elder abuse a criminal offense. Talk to your lawmaker. Tell them to make elder abuse a crime. It's time. Find more at aarp.org/IA.
There's never any FOMO with the iHeartRadio app. You won't ever have to miss out on your favorite shows and contests with this radio station again. Radio 24/7, 365. We're here when you want us. Stay connected and listen anywhere when you download the free iHeartRadio app. Michael Devine, broadcasting live.
I'm broadcasting live, and it's great to have on the air with me by telephone the Scrapster himself, Representative Mike Sexton. How you doing, Mike?
Doing good, Mike.
Okay, that's great. Say, what's the matter with Jennifer Confrist anyway? She's a Democratic representative down there, and she seems to support the Des Moines schools having books in their library that are sexually explicit and advocate for a transgender and gay lifestyle. Now, they don't have books with that sort of detail regarding human intimate relations for heterosexuals, but they do concerning gay relationships. Is this some twisted nonsense, or is there something the state can do about this?
Well, yeah, there's something the state could always do, Mike. The legislature could weigh in on that. But, you know, Representative Confrist is the minority leader for the Democrats in the House. And I think, Mike, the Democrats have painted themselves in a corner where this is what they believe. I don't know what they believe, but they support it. So she really has no choice but to come out and say the things she does.
Well, she said that people who disagree with this sort of instruction are having these sorts of books in the library. And believe me, you could go to iowastandard.com. That's kind of a conservative online newspaper, and see some of the things that are in school books, not school books, but library books. It is shocking. It's very shocking what Jennifer Confrist is advocating for. And she tells us that people who have a problem with it, parents that go to school board meetings and protest and that sort of thing, they're a fringe element in the state of Iowa. You know, I live in a town with kind of a reputation for being a tough little town. We still have 6 Lutheran churches. So she's talking about fringe element. Is she crazy? I mean, do you know her personally? Well, I suppose you do.
Yeah, I know her pretty well. She's only been there. I think she got reelected, so she hasn't been there 4 years. That she's in her second term. but you know, she can say what she wants to about out on the fringe, Mike. But if you showed people in my house district that book, I would tell you 95% of them would say that does not belong in the library. So she can say what she wants to say, but that doesn't in her district in Des Moines might be true, but it's not true out here in rural Iowa,
Well,
where we still have values, for God's sake.
Yeah. Something. I mean, this is beyond the pale. I talked with Jacob Hall of the Iowa Standard yesterday concerning Transgender Awareness Week in the Linn-Mar schools. I have grandchildren in the Linn-Mar school district. Actually, they're at Novak Elementary right now. But I called the principal of Linn-Mar School today and asked him to be on air. And when I told him who I was a talk radio host, he seemed to, his tone changed immediately, like he was talking to the dumbest person on earth. And that seems to be the attitude of some people in the education establishment. That's why I'm wondering if our legislator can't get involved with the education establishment and ask them what they think they're doing, because the attitude of some teachers, administrators in our schools around the state seems to be the parents are idiots and should shut up and be taught whatever these teachers and administrators want to be taught.
Well, and that's going to come back to bite them, Mike, because the push out here in Iowa from parents to have more control over their schools is growing every day, and these parents are very upset about what's going on in their schools, from the critical race theory to mask mandates to vaccine mandates. And if the schools aren't careful, we're going to pass legislation that says the parents are going to get to decide where they want their kids to go to school, and that's where the money's going to go. And if you have a school district that doesn't listen to the parents, and the parents take their kids somewhere else, you're going to be in a school district that's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. We turn to our legislators when nobody else is listening. When we encounter these education bureaucrats, because that's what they are, and their ideas, which come from Mars or some god-awful place. You remember some years ago, the superintendent of schools of Humboldt, I believe, or the principal or whatever, Governor Branstad was in office, and he was pushing some sort of gay acceptance thing. And the school district up in Humboldt sent some students down to Des Moines to take part in this wonderful series. And some gay rights activists got up in front of the kids and started using all sorts of explicit language and sneering at people who didn't understand the wonderfulness of the gay lifestyle, and describing in explicit language what gay people did in intimate relationships. It was shocking. I haven't heard much out of Humboldt since on that. And I don't know if the people involved in sending those kids there are still up there. But we need some sort of responsibility, parents and taxpayers, because ultimately the schools are supported by taxpayers. We need some sort of control device to rein these people in, because they think they're untouchable. And that's a dangerous thing for us, to have any group that's supposedly answerable to the taxpayers start believing that they're untouchable. And that seems to be the case.
Yeah, well, I'm headed home from caucus. So we had our December caucus this morning and this afternoon, Mike, and which is where we talk about what issues and policies we're going to push this winter. And one of the things we talked about was schools being responsible for to the parents and to the kids. So it's going to be on the radar this winter down in Des Moines.
Well, I suppose the teachers union is going to ask for another annual increase.
Yeah, well, they're going to get it.
They're going to get it.
They always do. But, so a couple of the things that we talked about. I mean, the governor's got a couple on the top of her priority list is rolling away from E10 and getting E15 on our gas stations. And the other one is reducing the Iowa taxes. And we spent a lot of time talking about that. Well, the big thing is, which you know, is there's 1.2 billion with a B dollars in the Iowa taxpayer fund that needs to go back to the people of the state of Iowa. And so the question we're working with as legislators is, how do we do that? Do we just write everybody a check, or do we take that money and roll it into a big individual tax reduction rate, which there was conversation this morning about going all the way to a flat, getting rid of income tax and going to a flat tax. So, you know, there was a lot of ideas today, but at the end of the day, by the time we adjourn next year, Iowans will have another tax reduction. I'm 99% sure.
I'm interested in no income tax, as a prominent Republican is pushing that. Jake, what's his name? Oh, shucks. I've talked to him several times. I can't even think of his name. But one of the Republicans in Des Moines is pushing no income tax. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea, Mike, but it's going to take a lot of years to fully implement it. I mean, here's the part of the problem we have in Iowa right now is that we have so many entities that don't pay a sales tax. So like medical supplies, livestock feed, or agriculture equipment, there's 123 things that don't pay sales tax. So we're going to have to wean off of that if we're going to make the flat tax work. So, you know, so to tell farmers in Iowa that, well, now you're going to start paying tax on fertilizer and seed and all your inputs and livestock feed, they're going to not like that, for one thing. But we're going to have to offset that with the flat tax. So I mean, I think it's interesting. I'd like to look at it, but I think it's going to be a challenge to get there. And so one of the things I think that's easier to do is just reduce taxes by 25, and I'm talking individual income tax, 25 to 30 to maybe 50% with this 1.2 billion. But I have colleagues that don't like that idea particularly because they want, selfishly I think, they want that check to come from the state of Iowa to individuals for $1,000 to $3,000. I don't know, and then they can say, "Well, look, I'm sending your tax money back to you," and they actually have a check to cash. So, but you know how that goes. That's politics.
That's just politics. That's right. Well, I talked with Ann Meyer and Tim Kreinbrink yesterday, and I would like to come down to Des Moines and see you guys a couple of times during the session, and I hope we can do that. What the session starts? What, the 10th or 11th in there somewhere?
Yeah, it's the second Monday of January, Mike. That sounds about right. One of those days.
Yeah, right in there. So you guys are all in Des Moines now doing what?
No, we were just there for today. Like I said, we call it caucus. It's where all the House Republicans come together and we discussed what our priorities are going to be, you know, as a group and then individually, which made me think of you. We have a couple members that want to put cameras in nursing homes because of course, Fort Dodge had a nursing home that got in trouble, and we've had several others around the state. And I remember you know, with Pomeroy and that issue.
Pomeroy was terrible.
Yep. And so, and I was surprised, you know, that always there's a fine line, Mike, that you want to make sure that our people in our nursing homes are not abused, they're well taken care of. But yet if we get too much regulation and we have to start closing nursing homes, then all of a sudden we don't have anywhere for our vulnerable people to go to. So, but having said that, there did appear to be quite a bit of support for maybe some kind of legislation that would put cameras in nursing homes so family members could monitor their loved one and make sure they're not being abused.
Well, I'd be in favor of that, but you remember Pomeroy was a particularly egregious situation. There was an 80-some-year-old man there who had a long history of molesting women, and he was actually there at the insistence of the state. The state's big failure was not insisting that the rest home tell the rest of the patients and families that this old creep was there in the first place. And what did he do? He molested at least once, probably more, a 95-year-old woman. And he was caught by an 8-year-old girl. The whole thing was just a disaster. And, you know, nobody was really held accountable. Nobody was really held accountable for that.
Now, I know we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah, we did. Well, it deserved a lot of talk. You know as well as I do, especially in this part of the state, we have an older population. And we have a need for care centers everywhere. Pomeroy, Rockwell City, Fort Dodge, everywhere. And we like to think I'm not too far from there anyway, now that I'm thinking, we like to think that our parents or grandparents are safe.
I agree, Mike. And that's why I some type of system like this is okay as long as, you know, we don't start losing. You know, if we start losing nursing homes in our little communities, we're going to be, I mean, people don't want their mom and dads to have to, if you live in Rockwell City, to go to Fort Dodge if we had to close Rockwell City. So we got to be, and a lot of this has been, you know, we have this huge labor shortage, and I'm not saying that as an excuse because everybody's dealing with it, but at the end of the day, I think everybody's doing as good as they can, but there's no place for anything that the abuse that goes on, or neglect maybe is the better word.
Yeah. I know a case where there was an elderly woman with Alzheimer's. Her husband had died a number of years before, and she was in a care center, and she kept telling her kids that dad was there last night, and dad had been dead for, again, years and years. Well, it turned out they did put in video cameras, and they found out one of the elderly gentlemen was paying a midnight visit, which is not good. So maybe certainly in the hallways would be a place for video cameras. There's got to be a happy medium. There's got to be some way. I mean, we're smart enough to figure this out, to keep our care centers in our hometowns and our small towns and all over where we need them, and still provide security. Come on, Mike, we're smart enough. You know we are.
No, I agree, Mike. I hope we can get there. So.
Yeah, I do too.
And one of the other things, well, it's tied right to this, is I think the governor's working on a workforce policy group. Speaker Grassley told us today he has named some people to a task force to deal with, and hopefully they'll find out something how we help this worker shortage in the state of Iowa. But at the end of the day, Mike, the problem is there just aren't enough people. Unless we're going to try to figure out how we're going to create more people, I don't know how we fix the problem.
No, but there must be something we can do. And we just got to put our heads together and get it done. It just takes determination. That's all. And maybe we haven't. I know when this Pomeroy thing happened several years ago, I don't know, it was 12, 13 years ago. I know when that happened, I talked on air with a number of people who, we had a tendency at the time just to trust our care centers, but we don't now. But there's no reason we can't again. I'm like you. I don't have the answer on top of my head. If I did, I'd certainly take credit for it, but I don't. So, but that doesn't mean we can't get this done, because the status quo isn't gonna hold, isn't gonna get us anywhere. So,
No.
is there anything else that's going on after the first of the year that we should know about or pay attention to?
Until we get down there, Mike, I know. I know that the ethanol issue, the governor wants that to come out really fast. So I would tell folks that that's probably gonna, and we tried to do it last year, and there was the people involved have worked really hard in the interim, and I think we have just about have agreements with the stations and the ethanol producers and everybody involved. I think now and I'm starting to get calls now and emails on the pipeline they want to put through. I think part of it goes through Webster County.
Yeah.
For carbon dioxide, to be able to create a source of revenue for the ethanol plants. So we've got that issue brewing right now too.
Well, David Osterberg, I know is not your favorite person, but he made a suggestion a little earlier today. He said, "Why don't we just keep this carbon in the ground here in Iowa?" The state geologist says that we could do it if we had the will to do it, but we could put it in a pipeline here in Iowa way down into a rock formation somewhere, and we wouldn't have to have the pipeline. Now, that sounds like a simplistic solution, and I'm sure there's more to it than that. But that is a question I'll be asking the state geologists and others, including the pipeline people, why they want to do it this way rather than just keep just drill a hole here in Iowa.
Well, I can't believe it's that simple. I mean, this is going to be pumped down to some cavern, this great big huge empty cavern.
Right.
It's going to be pumped into it, but which is going to cost. I mean, the pipeline's going to cost a lot of money. If we could just drill a hole and pump it into the ground, I would think the ethanol plants would have been all over that deal.
I think they would have been too. So, as I say, I'm sure there's more to it. It's not that simple. But anyway, Mike, it's always great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk to you later, Mike.
You bet. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
The real mayor after the news.
Is grass-fed
47 at 137.05. January feeder cattle down 85 cents at 162.57. March down 15 at 164.32. February lean hogs up 102 at 80.35. April up 67 at 84.87. That's looking how the market's closed. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Going to be sunny the rest of today. I think we only have about an hour of daylight left anyway. High may get to 36. I doubt it. It's 33 right now. Overnight cloudy, low 19. Tomorrow cloudy with a high of 35. Saturday it'll be sunny with a high of 24. A lot of wind on Saturday and Sunday. It'll be sunny with a high of 33 right now, 33 degrees. And we turn now to the real mayor, who is Matt Bemrick, and he's on the phone with us. Hi, Matt.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon to you, buddy. We had quite a night last night, didn't we?
Yeah, we still have quite a few people in our region, our area, without power, 1,400 or so. So there's still people out there battling. And
there's still people without power. What part of town are they in?
Well, not in per se in Fort Dodge proper, but just kind of in our area, in our region. So you get down towards Harcourt, Otho, Lehigh area, and then just kind of surrounding the Fort Dodge area, over towards Manson. I think there's still a few, and yeah, it's fairly significant. Still about 1,400. I talked to some Mid-American reps, and it sounds like there's some high lines, main transmission lines that took a serious hit from the wind last night, and they had to bring in additional crews to put those lines back up. So Mid-American's quickly responding, but it takes time to put that kind of infrastructure back in place.
Boy, those guys, some of the weather conditions I see them working in, I wouldn't want their job. God bless them for their work. God bless them for their, but to be up in a bucket, when it's windy and cold anyway, it just doesn't, it doesn't do it for me. If I'm gonna take part of that, I'd just soon be inside watching them from my recliner, But those guys are tough guys and they know what they're doing, and my hat's off to them. That's for sure. I guess by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I have Dylan Hagan, the county EMS guy, coming on after the news at the bottom of the hour, and he can talk more about what happened in the county. So we'll look forward to that. So we didn't really have any damage in town, did we?
Well, I wouldn't want to put light to somebody who had a big tree go down and hit their garage or roof, because I have seen some pictures and I've heard some stories about some big branches and some trees that were laying on top of a house or two within the community. But for the most part, it sounds like we kind of dodged a bullet a little bit. It kind of the storm kind of split up and broke up a little bit. It sounds like we had some tornadoes south of us, maybe a couple to the west and north, but we didn't have one plow through Fort Dodge. We did get some serious wind, and it did cause some damage. So there's people who had damage to vehicles, damage to their homes. So I wouldn't want to say we didn't have any damage, because we had some, but could it have been much worse? Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it could have been much worse across the state. The television stations and the information we were getting here at the radio station, these winds, they were fearful. The National Weather Service and other agencies were fearful this was going to be a very damaging storm, and they were really concerned about the physical safety in the people across the state who were in the direct line of this storm. I talked with Julie over in Dubuque. It was windy and cold and all those things over there, and there were some tree branches down, all the things you'd expect, but nothing major. I haven't talked with Luke down in Marion yet, but I got on the phone this morning and made some calls around the state to see if from friends and those sorts of people I wanted to ask if there was any real damage, and from what I understand, there hasn't been. I called down to Des Moines, for example, and
sounds like Council Bluffs is still battling some damage there. They still have over 3,000 people without power there.
Wow.
Des Moines just right at about 1,000, and then Fort Dodge, we've got about 1,400 in kind of that Fort Dodge neck of the woods up here, surrounding the Fort Dodge area, Webster County, kind of each of the counties that touch our county, they all contribute towards that number that they report as Fort Dodge. So if you happen to go on Mid-American's page and you're looking at the outage map and it says Fort Dodge 1403 people are currently listed as out, that doesn't mean that they're in Fort Dodge proper.
Okay.
It means that is, and you'll see them refer to Fort Dodge as the metro area. Those could be anything from Otho to up by Lakeside Golf Course and in the Lakewood neighborhood. It could be different pockets around Fort Dodge. So, but it's still, that's still a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
we're rolling up on 24 hours here without power. I've kind of heard that some of that large scale infrastructure that is damaged may take as much as until Saturday to make the final repairs to get some of those part of that grid back up. I've heard reports that some Mid-American customers are getting responses that their power is estimated to return on Saturday morning. So we still got some people that are without electricity and potentially without heat between now and Saturday morning. So hopefully they have a warm place to go, and or they got a generator or somebody who has a generator can help them out.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I never thought of that. I should have been talking that way on the air today. I don't think I have. I know I don't have a generator, but yeah, I know a lot of people who do, and it would be. I wouldn't want to go into tonight or for the next 48 hours without electricity. You know, my power did pop off last night for a minute twice, and the only
mine blinked a few times, but I did not completely lose power.
Yeah. The only thing I really thought is, oh my God, I don't have television. You know, I don't know if I'm getting to the point in life where that's so important. I must be, but yeah, it was nothing, and I have power, and everybody in my neighborhood was fine, and they didn't pick up the trash this morning, but I suppose that
they're going to do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
There was actually a notice that went out, kind of being proactive. The city took the idea of, hey, let's delay Thursday pickup to Friday. That way we can put all hands on deck Thursday morning. If we need to be moving trees off roadways,
right.
Helping Mid-Am cut some trees out of the way if we need to, whatever it might be. So we took that kind of proactive as a city saying, hey, we can wait a day to pick up that garbage and get the roads cleared and stuff. So I think that was a good move by our public works people and David and staff to make that decision. So, you know, one more day of garbage isn't going to break anybody. It's just like Thanksgiving week, you know. So
yeah. Oh no, that was a wise move, definitely. I just got to get on the list of people who gets the alert message or something so I can talk about it on the radio.
Yeah, it was on Facebook. You could probably, I think you would have gotten a press release to the radio station.
I usually
get out a press release.
I usually get press releases from the county, but I don't get them from the city. So there must. I'm going to talk with David Feerick.
Yeah, maybe make sure you're on that press release email chain.
Right. I'll talk with him tomorrow. I missed him on Monday, but
it could just be going to the newsroom and maybe you're not getting them and the newsroom's not forwarding that email to you or something.
Well, me and Rob Jones worked pretty well together, and I look forward to working pretty good. I look forward to working very well with Brooke Bickford now that she's over here doing some part-time work for us. And it's just
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Brooke's been on the air this week. Is her first week. She's not a full-time person. She has a regular job, but she actually graduated from the University of Iowa with a degree in communication and broadcasting, and she worked for a Sioux City television station for I don't know how long, and she worked over here 10 years ago or so, but she got a better paying job, which isn't hard to do. So, but she still maintained and retained an interest, I guess. And it's great to have her over here. She does a good job, does a really good job.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
So, if anyone's interested, if you go out on the web and go to midamericanenergy.com, Outagewatch, you can actually see a live map that shows you where outages are. So right now, probably the largest outage that is in proximity to Fort Dodge looks to be out there on Old Highway 169 by the 4-H grounds, Savage Edition area. That particular little mark that they put on the map there says there's 3 different items that are causing the outage. And there's about 790 people impacted by those outages. So it's an interactive map. It's a really good map if you're interested in understanding or looking around to see, where's their power, where's their not power. City of Duncombe still has about 230 customers that are being impacted. Otho is another one that's, I think in that Otho kind of proximity of Otho, there's about 800 people impacted there. So there's quite a few people in the Fort Dodge region that are still waiting on getting power restored. Talking with Mid-American, they've brought in additional crews. They've got people coming from out of state, and they're trying to cover a pretty big area. This storm essentially from the southern border to the northern border swept across the state of Iowa. So it impacted a lot of area that Mid-American serves. So they're trying to bring all hands on deck and get some things taken care of.
Well, again, I admire those folks. I do. They do have a big job, especially in, weather emergencies like we had last night. Again, it didn't pan out as bad as a lot of people thought, and that's a good thing. I haven't heard of anybody injured anywhere. Have you?
I have not heard of any injuries. Quite a bit of property damage south of us and to the west. Some property damage within the city over towards Duncombe. I've heard coke nitrogen, that area going north and east, quite a bit of damage that way. Somebody said something about some damage up in Eagle Grove on one of the calls I was on today. So yeah, there's definitely some property damage. I have not heard of any injuries. So
okay.
That is definitely, the injury thing is when we really start getting worried. So hopefully we got through this without people getting hurt. Property can be fixed. Hopefully everybody has their insurance paid up and they can call their insurance agent, get things figured out on how to make their repairs. So
what is your brother-in-law's phone number?
I'm not marketing for anybody. I'm just saying, get a hold of your insurance guy.
No. I suppose he's not my insurance guy, but
the one thing to share with your listeners is it's always just to call those insurance guys before you start making those repairs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people getting really anxious. They want to get things fixed really quick, and they start making calls to fix them before they've notified their insurance people. And then before you know it, you got a problem with the claim or something. So, reach out to your insurance people, talk to them, find out what path they want you to go down. And, in the modern era, we videotape and take pictures of everything. So, if you got pictures of things, share them, make sure you keep them. So I've seen some pretty interesting pictures. I saw on Facebook this morning, the messenger actually asked people for storm damage pictures, and there was a lot of pictures on there.
Really?
Some pretty significant damage to different buildings and others. So,
no. Well, the messenger only does two things, right? One of them is a farm ag show, and that's wrapping up, and the other one's a sports page. So I should probably check their page a little bit more for pictures and that sort of thing. But anyway, you got to get going. I know you do.
I do. I have a meeting starting at 4:30. And I'm glad, Dylan, you were able to get a hold of Dylan. Dylan's our Webster County EMA coordinator, and he can tell you all about what's, preparedness stuff that was discussed. And we were getting things lined up yesterday for a major event. And luckily, we didn't need some of the things we were talking about, but he should be able to tell you a little bit more about some damage outside of the city.
Yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of him all day, but not surprisingly, he wasn't available. But he did get a hold of me, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, he's probably still pretty busy. I mean, what we don't see, because we don't get the reports maybe that Dylan's getting, and he has to do an assessment as well. So he'll go out and do storm damage assessment. So I'm sure, was very busy today.
Yeah. All right, Matt Bemrick, Mayor Matt Bemrick has been our guest. Thanks, man.
You bet. Take care, everyone.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFT.
Michael Devine, standing for Medicare and Social Security. After a lifetime of work, you deserve it. AM 1400 KVFT.
Yeah, it's 423.
Spreading it on thin. Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Stever, managing for profit on Brownfield, University of Missouri.
here today doing a survey on the damage. So we saw a pretty defined line of damage starting down. It actually started in Peyton, down in Greene County, came through Harcourt, and then up by Lehigh, east of Otho, up through Duncombe, up towards Vincent. So pretty long line of damage.
What are we talking damage in the towns or out in the country, or
mostly rural outside of the city limits?
Were any farm places destroyed or outbuildings, or what are we
mostly
talking about?
Mostly outbuildings. A lot of tree damage, power lines. We still have some roads that are shut down due to power lines. The power crews are diligently working to get those off the roadway and power restored. We still have quite a few residents without power in the county as well.
How many people are affected in the county by the power outage?
The last I saw, the number was around 1,200, I believe.
1,200 in the county.
Yep.
And that includes Fort Dodge.
Yep. I think most power in Fort Dodge is restored.
I talked to the mayor just a little bit ago, and that's what he said. He said that the outer Fort Dodge area, out by Lakeside Golf Course and homes out north of there and around there, I think there's some spots that maybe the power is still out. But my full admiration and appreciation goes out again to the Mid-American workers who are out there.
Absolutely.
It's still pretty chilly out there, and they're in a bucket trying to work.
Windy. It's still a little breezy out there too. We had a pole catch on fire last night, and I was helping with traffic control on that, and we had about 6 trucks, bucket trucks, go by, and they were from Indiana.
Really?
So
wow,
those crews had already moved in from out of state to help get power restored in our area. So
nice to know when it comes to emergency services, we've got our stuff together in this country.
It was we had enough notice on this storm that they pre-positioned themselves and did some pre-planning, and they were ready for it.
That rock. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Of course, other states were affected. Do you know anything about other states or not?
I haven't heard of any other states. My focus has kind of been here locally. So but as of right now, I don't have any information on other states. So
what's it take? What kind of background does it take to be in your position, emergency management coordinator for a county in Iowa?
Usually, public safety helps. I have a background in law enforcement, fire, and EMS.
You do?
Yep.
You were a cop somewhere?
I'm a reserve on the sheriff's office here in Webster County.
Okay. You're a reserve still?
Yep.
Did you have any particular education in the field, or just did you come up through experience, the ranks of experience?
Just through experience. We do have 4 professional development classes that we put on across the state that other experienced emergency management coordinators teach and help you better prepare your community. So
I'd love to take part in that, just as somebody who helps, just as a citizen who helps. Do you accept people like that, or do you have any kind of training for people like me who would like to just help or be a spotter or whatever?
For storm spotting?
Yeah.
The Weather Service does offer yearly storm spotting classes. The last couple of years with COVID and everything, they've been doing online virtual trainings. So hopefully next year we can get everybody back together and meet in person.
I'm always better in person,
Yep. Yeah, it makes a difference.
I grew up that way. I learned that way, and the online learning, I've tried it with some success. But
it's a different world.
Yeah, it really is.
We've done a lot of meetings virtually, but I still prefer the face-to-face meetings.
Oh gosh, yes, that's much better.
Yep.
We've been lucky that we didn't have any windstorms this year. No tornadoes really to speak of in Webster County.
We waited till December.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing. I haven't.
Historical.
It is. I never heard the word derecho until 3 years ago. I don't think. My son lives in Lynn County. He lives in Marion, and I went down to see him. I've said this several times on the air. Don't mean to bore anybody, but I've never seen that before. I mean, where the corn was just flat in the fields. I mean, it happened in late August. The corn was getting mature. And when I got into the city of Cedar Rapids, I was astounded. I mean, huge trees ripped up and laying in the middle of the street. And it was chaos. I mean, but again, those people down there, had great emergency services as well, and they sprung into
Yep.
action. And what a huge job it was.
Yeah, it can be a lot of work, but here locally we've got a good crew of first responders and emergency personnel. So.
When you say first responders, are you talking the fire department and the police department, sheriff's office?
Yep.
Is there anybody else like the hospital or
hospital, public health? We all met prior to the storm and had meetings and pre-planning, so we were all on the same page, knew what each other's jobs were, knew where to meet if one of our concerns was we're going to lose communications with the wind event. So that was having a backup plan. So we met prior to the event to make sure we had all that stuff in place.
What were some I can't think of a tornado that happened in Webster County this year. But what were some of the weather events or emergency events in Webster County that you had to pay particular attention to this in 2021?
Really, we've been pretty lucky.
This past year we had.
Yes. Yeah. It's been pretty smooth sailing. Obviously, we just continuation of COVID and trying to support our community with the needs that they have for COVID response.
What is your job as far as COVID is concerned?
Mostly logistical things, trying to support personal protective equipment and sharing of information between all the stakeholders, our nursing homes, public health, hospital, first responders.
When you say personal protective equipment, is that like the full dress man from outer space suits?
That's part of it. Your N95, surgical mask, gloves.
Right.
So
I respect the power of COVID, man. I had it bad last year, and my son was on a ventilator until recently. So you say COVID around me, I jump.
Yeah,
so whatever you can do with COVID is certainly appreciated.
Yep. Try to keep everybody safe.
Yeah. I'm vaccinated, and I recommend that people get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
Are you vaccinated?
I am.
All right, man.
You got
it. Well, it kind of sounds like we dodged a bullet.
Somewhat. Yep. It's definitely not as bad as we were expecting. However, there are still quite a few people that are affected and quite a bit of damage out there. So
well,
the cleanup process begins. They're already out there cleaning up debris, and looks like the communities have come together, the places I've seen. So
do we have Webster County road workers and things like that out there? Or I should say Webster County heavy equipment operators. Are they part of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely they are. The DOT and secondary roads have been a big part in the cleanup process, also helping blocking roads. We've had a lot of issues with people not listening to the road close signs. Those are there for a reason.
What's up with that?
They're yeah, you can get a fine for driving around a road close sign.
I hope somebody does if they're doing that. That's foolish.
They've found out why they shouldn't do that because they've driven into the power lines. We've got 2 trucks currently that are stuck in some power lines, which will probably delay the process of getting power restored now to some communities. So the signs are there for a reason. Don't drive around them.
Some people must think those road close signs say road closed except for Bob.
Yeah.
Road closed except for you.
Yeah. It's frustrating. We take the time to put them out there, and secondary roads and DOT were out, 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock last night, making sure that the roads were safe and closed where the power lines were down. And
okay, so it sounds like we're going to pull out of this. Okay,
I do believe so.
I mean, hats off, or I shouldn't say hats off, but all due consideration for people who still don't have power. I told the mayor my lights popped off a couple times last night, and I thought I won't have television the rest of the night. My God, what am I going to do?
We can live without that.
I think so. Right. Dylan Hagan is here. He's our Webster County Emergency Management Coordinator. Thank you, Dylan.
You bet. Thank you.
This is AM 1400 KBFD.
Hey, guys, there is some important news that all men should take very seriously. Your prostate health. Are you urinating more frequently? Are you waking up at night to urinate? Are you sick and tired of prostate pills that just don't work? Sound familiar? If you are one of the millions of men with prostate